Hello, welcome to Unboxed God, where we detox from religion and discover the God who refuses to fit inside the boxes we were given. I'm Tolu Sarah Johnson, and here we explore who God really is, beyond fear, beyond formulas, and beyond everything we were taught to perform. If you're hungry for a real relationship with Him, you are in the right place. Let's dive in. So this is going to be our Commandment 33rd, which, of course, is the fifth commandment in the theme of following. And this commandment is when you pray, fast or give, do it secretly. In a way, it's similar to the previous commandment, but the only addition is not just when you give, this is when you pray and fast as well. So before we dive into talking about this at a greater depth, let's quickly read the Bible verse for this parable, for this commandment, which is Matthew 6, verse 5 to 6. It says, "And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogue and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." That's profound. So, what is the Bible telling us here? This commandment is not God banning public prayer. It is Jesus rescuing prayer from performance. Because prayer can become one of the most subtle stages on earth. Not a stage with microphone, but a stage with spiritual language. Not a stage where you sing, a stage where you sound holy. And Jesus exposes something uncomfortable here. You can be praying and still be feeding your flesh. Yes. Because what does hypocrisy look like in prayer? Hypocrisy is not simply being fake. Sometimes it's doing something spiritual with hidden motive you refuse to admit. Jesus said the hypocrites love to pray standing in public spaces because they are not only praying to God, they are also praying to the crowd. Public prayers can quietly become a place where people pray long because long prayers sound impressive. Use big words because big words sound spiritual. Explain everything because explanation creates the illusion of depth. Raise the voice because volume feels like authority. Repeat phrases because repetition feels like power. And Jesus says something that stings. If being seen is what you wanted, then being seen is what you got. And that's your reward. Not because God is petty, but because you chose your payment on earth. Yes. Because religion trained many of us to believe that prayer is measured by how outward it is, the length of the prayer. That if you pray long, if you pray where people can see you, you've prayed properly. So a short prayer can feel like you didn't do enough. Or a prayer you done in the eating place might seem as if you didn't do enough. Like God won't take it seriously. But Jesus flips that thinking completely. God doesn't need details. He already knows. Yes, he already knows what you're asking. Prayer is not a report. It is relationship. That doesn't mean you can't pour out your heart. Sometimes people need to talk, to release fear, to process pain, like speaking to a therapist who truly loves them. God welcomes that. But Jesus is challenging the idea that long prayer is automatically deeper prayer. Because sometimes the longest prayers are not intimacy. They are insecurity. So I want you to look at this analogy, the prayer podium versus the prayer room. Imagine two spaces. The first is a podium, a public place. People can hear you. People can notice you. People can admire you. Even if you don't say it out loud, there is a temptation in that space. Let me sound strong. Let me sound wise. Let me sound spiritual. Let me pray in a way people will remember. Now imagine the second space is a room with a closed door. No one can hear you. No one can clap. No one can compliment your words. That room kills performance. Because in that room, the only reason to pray is God. And that's exactly why Jesus says, go into your room, close the door. Not because God hides, but because your ego shows up less in secret. So the secret place is not mystical, it is intentional. Jesus is describing something practical, a set apart place, a consistent place, a place where your mind learns. This is where I meet him. For some people, it is a room. For some people, it is a chair. For some people, it is their car. For some people, it is early morning before the house wakes. So the point is not the furniture. The point is focus. Privacy removes the pressure of being perceived. And without that pressure, you can be honest. Yes. So you can say what you will never say at a microphone. You can cry without managing your image. You can confess without pretending strength. You can be small. And that's why the secret place produces intimacy. Because it gives you permission to stop acting. So when Jesus says, they have received their reward, this line is Jesus being painfully clear. Praise is payment. And when you pray publicly to be admired, the admiration is your reward. But when people say that was such a powerful prayer and your flesh feels fed, that moment becomes the wage. And yes, God can still answer prayer, but there's a difference between God's mercy answering you and God's reward resting on you. Jesus is teaching that the internal reward is the internal reward is attached to sincerity. And sincerity is easiest to protect in secret. Yes. And you might be wondering, what does God rewarding you openly really means? When God rewards you openly, it is not to advertise you. It is to point people back to the hidden life. Sometimes your life begins to show fruit, open doors, unusual strength, consistent peace, strange resilience, divine help, and others can't explain it. Then you can say quietly, this is not because I'm impressive. It's because I've met him in secret. And the spotlight shifts from you back to him. So, prayer's real purpose. Prayer is communication with someone you love. And this is where Jesus is inviting the modern believer into maturity. Not a religious routine, not a performance, not a one-way speech, but a relationship, a back and forth exchange. Because a relationship where only one person speaks is not intimacy, it is a monologue. And Jesus is honest about what he longs for, not just your words, your attention, your listening, your responsiveness, your friendship. That is why the secret place matters. It is where you lean. It is where you learn to stop performing and you start communing. So, to close this commandment is Jesus removing the audience from your spirituality. Because when no one is watching, your motive becomes clear. And when your motives become clear, your love becomes pure. So if you want to obey this commandment, it is simple. Choose the secret place. Close the door. Let prayer become private again. Let it be real again. Let it be love again. Because the Father who sees what is done in secret is not missing your life. Is watching the hidden part, and He rewards that. God bless you.